What is up, and welcome back to another episode of So There's That. I'm your hostess, doing the mostest, Kibanshi, and it's February, guys, and I'm calling it Le Mois de l'Amour, okay? French is known as the language of love, and we are celebrating Black love in our Black History Month, in the month of February, where some people only focus on February 14th, but baby, we loving on each other all month long, okay? And you know, what a good time to, you know, throw in some French and stuff that I'm learning. Will I be speaking French? No, but we're gonna call it the title of our Film Wednesdays this month, Le Mois de l'Amour, and it means the month of love, okay? And guys, I cannot believe that this is the first film that I started off with, and it is one of the most beautifully written love stories I have ever seen in my life. It is beautifully shot. The pace is so nice. The mood is so calm. And it is so normal. It is so normal. And that's what makes it so beautiful. Now, all of the movies that I'm going to be reviewing this month, I've never seen. I didn't look up. I didn't ask what it was about. I didn't Google what it was about. I just really wanted to look up different films about like Black love, Black romance, and, you know, different types. I wasn't necessarily like trying to stay like on theme or anything like that. But we will be going through recapping and reviewing different films. Most of them are independent films, first and foremost. So if you've never heard of these films, what a good way to tap into some directors and some actors that you haven't ever seen, and some actors that you have seen who still participate in independent film projects with other people in the industry, and to just give more emphasis on films outside of the stuff that we know and love, like Brown Sugar, Love and Basketball, The Wood. I'm trying to think of other movies. Why can't I think of it? It's not like the best love story, but y'all know what I'm saying. Like, I just wanted to give light to some other films as well. And of course, in my Google searches where I'm looking up like Black love, like movies about Black love, Black romance, this was one of the first ones that popped up. So it's called Really Love. It came out in 2020 when we were all locked in the house, but I'm not sure people were watching love stories. I think we were watching a lot of like slasher movies, to be honest. It is an hour and 34 minutes. It is drama, romance, and it's rated G. I didn't see anywhere that you could get it for free. I bought it on Prime Video. You can rent it on Prime Video, or if you have any other app that you can watch it on, I highly encourage you to go ahead and look it up. The logline says, set in contemporary Washington, D.C., a rising Black painter strives to break into the competitive art world while balancing a bittersweet romance he never expected. Okay, so the writer, there are 3 writers listed on IMDb, and I'm just reading my notes. We have Felicia Pride, Angel Kristi Williams, and Sanford Grimes. The director is Angel Kristi Williams. The cinematographer is Shawn. And then I'm going to also include some people that that's not like my staple inclusion, just because this film was so beautiful and the premise of the film, I felt like these people deserved specific shout outs as well. And y'all already know I'm always bigging up the crew that helps make the little details bring the bigger story to life. So our composer is Khari Mateen. Our production designer is Nathan Parker. Our set decorator is Michaela Sulka. The costume designer is Kairo. The key hairstylist is Sakeitha. The key makeup artist is Jasmen Davis. The gaffer, guys, chief of lighting and electrician on the set, Mike Wilson. Huge shout out to Mike Wilson, Jasmen Davis, and Sakeitha King, as well as Kairo Quartz. Those are your costume designers, your key hairstylists, your key makeup artists, and your gaffer. When I tell you that every outfit, every makeup look, every sharp cheekbone was perfectly done, perfectly lit, beautifully shot, like, oh my God, just to see them in the dark, but see their skin and the light not going into the skin, but reflecting off of this dark skin and the rich hues of the black characters in this show. My God, it stands out immediately just soon as the movie starts. Then the set decorator, you know, the story is about a painter. There's a lot of art in this, and it's about his life as a painter. Just getting all of the different pieces and just making them so beautiful, and just the earth tones and the way nothing was like working against each other in what you saw. Like, what an amazing film to just look at. And if you don't even watch it and just put your sound bar on, or like some Bluetooth, just even the music in the background, like, it is such a vibe. What a very cohesive film. This is one of the most cohesive films I have seen in my life. If I had to give you all a reference point, I would say The Photograph with Issa Rae. If I had to give you like a tone or like a mood, minus the backstory that's kind of also told. There's like a dual story that's told in The Photograph. But if I had to give you something to latch on to just for comparison purposes, just the whole vibe and the visual aesthetic of it all is similar, okay, while the stories are vastly different. Okay, our cast is Kofi Siriboe, who plays Isaiah. Yootha Wong-Loi Singh, who plays Stevie. Now, what I really love about this is Stevie's character is from Rotterdam, Netherlands, and she is Dutch in real life. That's exactly where she's from. So I love that her character is a transplant / immigrant to DC. And you get to just, they don't necessarily go deep into the Dutch culture, but just even a nod of writing that in there and just acknowledging this black woman from a place where, if you think of the Netherlands, if you think of Dutch people, you're not gonna think of a dark-skinned black woman. So really love that they added that touch in there. We also have Naturi Naughton, who plays her cousin. Let me get her cousin's name real quick. It's the only name in the cast that I didn't get. Sicily. And then Uzo Udoba, who plays Chenai. First of all, like, the names of the characters in this, and obviously I didn't name all the characters, but just having, like, obviously there's multiple countries in Africa, so I'm just gonna say Africa as a blanket for the continent, but a lot of the characters having African surnames and really being deep and rich into their culture, even though they live in Washington D.C. So I just love the cultural nuances and the multiple ethnic backgrounds of not only the actors who are cast in these roles, but infusing those into the characters as well. So you just really get a well thought out and just rich story, like, just from that. Like, if this wasn't even a story, but if it was just like a musical journey, like if it was like a soundtrack, right, with no lyrics, like a non-lyrical soundtrack, and you just do the music that was infused in here and maybe infuse some of the different cultural backgrounds, like, you would know every character in this show. Like, that's how purposeful Angel Kristi Williams and the rest of the writers were with this film. I'm obsessed. Okay, like I said, the music, the open musical score is ridiculous. ridiculous. It already set in my mood, and I'm gonna try not to cry in this because it is so beautifully, this is so beautiful. And they're showing like all the people on the street and like the different skin tones, and they're showing like the different art and stuff like that, and it really just made me just sit and just truly appreciate like how beautiful being Black is, and how other people try to tell our stories and make it rooted in violence and rooted in poverty and rooted in toxicity, and you just get to see Black people just being happy and expressing their art and singing and painting and dancing, and just opening up this story. It just really just sets the tone for everything. So excuse me, I promise I'm not one of the ones that's like, let me turn on the camera and cry. It wouldn't be the first time that I'm overwhelmed emotionally, but I just was not expecting this film to like make me feel so much. Okay, so one of the opening lines, as we see our main characters, Isaiah and Stevie, have their first introduction. Isaiah walks up to this beautiful woman staring at a painting, and it just so happens to be Stevie. And the first thing that she says is, Black people are as extraordinary and as normal at the same time. Opening lines. And it truly just sets the tone and the vibe of what Isaiah wants to portray throughout the, and I think the whole message of the movie as well is just Black people being seen as just normal. Like, it's okay that you think we are amazing, and you think because of all the strife and stuff that we overcame that we're just somehow magical, but what we overcame was hard. There's generational PTSD, and in spite of it all, we bleed, we laugh, we cry, we hurt, we feel just like everybody else. Like, ultimately, we just want to be. Like, that's it. Just let us be human. And outside of the love story, I think that that's a beautiful just like undercurrent of what's happening, and it makes a movie that's otherwise very normal and very mundane magical, to be honest. So I already talked about the lighting and just like the ambiance and the mood, and everything is just really set up. Just the perfect romantic tone, the perfect romantic backdrop. And honestly, I'd say like this is like the perfect movie to watch, you know, with somebody that you love. And on Valentine's Day, I think that it'll spark beautiful conversation about career, about compromise, about sacrifice, about giving, about support, about loving without conditions, love with conditions, and what those things look like. So it's definitely a film that is very challenging in a healthy way. Yeah, just the health of this film. It's so breathtaking and refreshing, especially when we have films that in our minds are like super romanticized. It's like some of the best love stories. Like I said, I mentioned Love and Basketball, but like as a 30-something-year-old, like I recognize the toxicity in it. Love Jones, you know what I mean? Like I recognize the toxicity in it. Boomerang, you know what I mean? Like all of these cult classics, which I will absolutely still watch. It's nice to be my age now and consuming a movie like this versus being a young teen and watching Love and Basketball, and that was like the pinnacle of romance. And I'm not saying that it was wrong. That type of drama also exists in the world, but it's nice to be in a space that I am right now, in a space of peace, of health. I don't know, drama, my own relationship. Like we talk through things and get through things, we work through things, we don't shut each other out. And so where I am mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and relationshiply, it's just very beautiful to consume this movie as I'm also in the space of this film in my life. And I honestly think that's why it like touched me so much, because baby, he had to crawl through get it out the mud, okay, with some people in my life and some people in my past. And when you can make it on the other side and not be a victim of your own choices, especially when it comes to relationships, like, shout out. Yes. The hair and the makeup, like I said, I already shouted out the key hairstylist and key makeup artist. Just a lot of the different natural hairstyles, even with the men, like the coils, the brush cut, the beard, the cuts, the everything. Like, nobody was neglected in this film, and everybody is a work of art, okay? What did Jasmen Sullivan say? A masterpiece, okay? So something else that I really liked, just going into the undercurrent of what this film is Isaiah's character and what he's trying to portray in his art, where he says, people think that art is supposed to be like this fancy thing and this thing that is just supposed to be like unreachable. But when it comes to art and black art and what he wants to do, he's like, we are art. Black people make something out of nothing every day, and that in and of itself should be appreciated without explanation, without exploitation, without diving deep into like the deeper meaning of everything. Our very existence is basically alchemy at this point. And so he's just a little frustrated at having to always like explain himself when we are it. We are priceless, and we are just infinitely amazing, and just that subtle side story in this whole thing is just beautiful. And so you get to watch this couple date. You get to watch him talking about his art and all the things he wants to do and where he wants to go. Her being in law school, and there's no competition within their relationship and within their courtship of like judgment or insecurity. It's like we're walking through where she's accepting him as an artist. He's accepting her and her ambitions to being a lawyer, and he likens them to the same thing. Like an artist, like a lawyer, they're here to disrupt, and they're here to challenge, and they're here to make you think about things and then rethink those same things before you make a decision on something. And so I just love like the pace of it all. We actually get to see them go through things, and we get like a realistic timeline of where these things are going and the natural progression and growth of the relationship. Like, they're in each other's space and they're comfortable in each other's space, but they're not imposing upon one another or like lording one thing over the other or making one feel inferior. And when you think about like artists, you know, they don't necessarily make a lot of money, and she comes from some money and she's in school to be a lawyer, but like never once has she ever like made him, like there was never any vibe where she was like, so what are you gonna do when this don't work out? Like there was never any of that like air of superiority from her. It was just acceptance. I like this guy and he's ambitious, and he's not just sitting around doing nothing. And he brings out something in her as well, to the fact that she's questioning like, I wish I could be more like you. And he's like, well, I wish I could be more like you. And then both of them just looking at the other's career and figuring out how the other person inspires them to unlock something within themselves. Him having a little bit more structure, meeting some deadlines, and her being just a little bit more open and less stringent within her own life and just relaxing at the edges a little bit. And I just think that that is really, really beautiful. Now, one of the conflicts that, well, two of the main conflicts that Isaiah is going through is, one, his dad in particular does not support his art. You know, I've been there with the father, like I said in one of my videos, who was just like, get you a job that's gonna make some money. And so basically this is the same father, and he's like, how are you gonna support a family? And Isaiah's like, what family? What are we talking about? Where are this wife and kids? of whom you speak. And it's always like this make-believe, made-up thing, like you need to work yourself to the bone just in case some person comes out and you need to support a family. And it's like, well, is that what he wants? And then where's the balance between doing what you love and then doing something that makes money? Like, so it was never really like a full acceptance or support of his art. It was always like this other thing. And then the other conflict is he's been put on by Yootha, who's played by Michael Ealy, and guys, shocker, he is not a killer in this movie. Like, cause Michael Ealy, you've been on a roll. Okay, I don't know what happened. I guess maybe you don't want to be a heartthrob anymore, because you've literally just been taking on characters where I'm just like, every time I see you, I don't want to see you. So I was a little like holding my breath. But yes, Yootha ends up recommending Isaiah to Chenai, and she has his artwork in like an exhibit where she's putting on a bunch of different people, and she likes it, but she's like, you know, I think you could give me more, and I don't think you're ready for a solo show yet. Now, he's in his feelings about these things, and something that I love so much, we see a lot of these movies, and it's not about like black or white or anything like that, but we see a lot of movies that really lean into male fragility and male insecurities, where when they're disappointed in something that doesn't happen, they're kind of like lashing out at the woman or shutting down in a way that is not conducive to the relationship. And in this, he tells her how he feels and what's going on and how he's disappointed, and he opens up that space for her to support him. And I thought that it was just so beautiful, and to me, I think it's the crux of this movie as a romance movie, as opposed to the romance movies that I grew up with, especially with like black romance. You know, we have a lot of old Hollywood movies, and even as I'm like curating my films for other months, you know, it was kind of disappointing to be like, oh, I want to look up old Hollywood, and you don't see black people. And so I am forever grateful to the 90s and the 2000s for giving us our black love stories, no matter how complicated or how silly or how toxic they were. We know that they do represent certain relationships that's in everybody's lives, not just the black community. But having this moment and it just being so pure really made me really happy, and kind of soothed a little bit of that balm of just me being a little bit hurt that when I was doing my Googles, I'm just like, damn, so there's no black love stories like before 1980, like, you know. And I'm talking about black on black, not interracial, not, you know, the loving story, and like, no, like just black love. And so for filmmakers watching this, I would love for y'all to do some period pieces set in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, so that in the year 2025 and beyond, we can create us in those spaces so that people younger than me don't feel like I did as I was Googling this. And I knew there weren't a lot, but it looking me in my face just kind of like made me sad a little bit. And so again, having this moment where this black man is opening up to this black woman, and he's not shutting down based on his life circumstances, and men don't cry and men don't share their feelings. Like, the character of Isaiah is just a lover boy. He is a lover. He is a lover, and he loves fully and he loves wholly. And even though his father doesn't necessarily support his art, the way he is also speaks to just his family dynamic, because his mom and dad are still together. Their family is close. The cousins and the uncles and the aunts and stuff be coming over. So the dad doesn't understand it, but the way that he is shows that he was raised in an enriched environment, to where he can feel vulnerable enough to still be himself and not put on a mask when he's in a relationship with someone else. All right. So now is the time that we're moving into our relationship, and it's time to meet Stevie's parents. Okay, things are getting serious, and y'all, her mom is Suzanne Douglas, okay, from The Parenthood, from How Stella Got Her Groove Back, and her daddy is none other than Blair Underwood. Talk about shocked. Like, these are the things that I'm talking about, where you're getting these directors and you got these big names and they still come and support indie directors, you know, indie writers early on in their careers or just in the middle of their careers. And I'm assuming, you know, taking some pay cuts, but the story is so good and they want to continue to support the upcoming artists and the actors. Like, seeing these names, Michael Ealy, Suzanne Douglas, Blair Underwood, like Kofi Siriboe, like, are you kidding me? Uzo Udoba, like Naturi Naughton, sorry, I'm like super excited, I'm butchering the names. But they're pretty big now. And, you know, putting them beside everybody else in this film, it was just beautifully curated and everybody was perfectly cast. Really love that. However, okay, the mama is like, how you gonna support my baby girl? How are you gonna pay these bills? Whose home are you living in? And her dad's like, I know it's not the apartment that we pay for. Quoi? Excuse me? And dinner doesn't necessarily go the worst, but you know, he takes it in stride and he uses it as fuel to just continue to drive himself forward, thinking about the advice that Yootha gave him and just kind of like finding his own voice. Because at the beginning, Stevie mentions that his art reminds her of someone else, and then when Yootha is talking to him, he's just like, you know, okay, your white counterparts, they're probably not as good as you, but they're probably on their second and third shows. You got to be the unicorn. And Isaiah's like, oh, like you? And he was like, I wasn't a unicorn, but I worked my ass off to make sure that I could do some magic to make people believe that it is such. And basically all that means is you are unique, but you are not. So what is it in you, that seed that sets you apart from everybody else? And that seed becomes Isaiah's perception of people around him in the form of like a distorted image signature with a lot of artistic textures, with like thicker paints going into like thinner paints and stuff like that. And so he doesn't get discouraged by any of the advice, and he doesn't get defensive by anything, and he takes it in and he finally just like submits himself into his artistic space. And when he calls Chenai over, she's stunned. She's like, okay, all right, I'm seeing you. I don't see echoes of anybody else. I see Isaiah. And Isaiah is ready for a solo show. So we got some good news from Isaiah, but you know, things are getting dicey on Stevie's side, because her capstone defense that she submitted to her class was so good that everybody and their mama wants to interview her and hire her at their firm, to include a firm that she was looking at before she ever even met Isaiah in Chicago. So it's like, okay, what do I do? Do I go to Chicago and follow my dream, or do I stay here because I'm like in love with this man? And as these things are happening and she's kind of like having some back and forth, he's also getting a little trajectory or whatever on his career. So he's a little bit more absent these days. He's in the studio because there are deadlines. And there was a point where he got caught up in something and he missed something of theirs. Okay, cool. No big deal. You know, she says she's fine. She's fine. She's fine. We know what fine means. But in this moment, I'ma just be real. She was talking about the Chicago thing, and he was just like, okay, well, I think you should go. And she was like, excuse me? And he was like, this is something that you've always wanted to do. Like, who am I to tell you not to go and follow your dreams? Now, a woman who's not in her feelings and could, you know, communicate these things would probably be really excited that her man supports her and is not trying to anchor her to him now that his career is taking off. But somehow, you know, the signals get crossed, and Stevie is offended by this because he's not telling her what she wants to hear. And so she picks this fight out of like nowhere. And right when he's like, okay, look, obviously we're not getting anywhere tonight. So he's just getting ready to lay down. And she's like, I think you need to go. And he's like, what? And she's like, you need to leave. And he's like, okay, so your house, your rules. All right, bet. And this really showed you who they were in relationships, and it definitely made me question what type of conflict she's seen and how she's seen her parents resolve conflict. Because even though he was upset at her picking this fight and being mad at him for supporting her, he was ready to just lay down and go to sleep. Like, okay, we got into a little disagreement, but it is what it is. And she's like, you need to go. And now he's confused, and so am I. Like, I'm like, what is happening here? And unfortunately, okay, a year passes. Like, this was like the weirdest breakup ever. And it's really rooted in, I think she was looking for, I think she was like a words of affirmation person. She was really looking for some vocal confirmation of even just love, or like a declaration of love. And she didn't get it. But this was also on the heels of him missing an event that was important to her, and she lied and said that it was fine. So you have all these internalized feelings that you're not expressing, and so then you have this super weird breakup because he supports your dreams. Like, that's crazy. Anyway, a year passes, and his homie Nick comes to see him, and he's like, bro, like, we trying to go out this weekend, you know, it's been a minute since we hung out. And he's just kind of like scatterbrained a little bit. And he's like, you know what, like, I got stuff to work on. Like, I just be getting caught up in the art. It is what it is. He's a little concerned for his friend, and not concerned like, are you depressed per se, but just like, I know you're still hurting, and I wish you would come outside with us. But he gives Isaiah his space, and he's like, you know, let's link up when I get back from Chicago. And Nick is like, Chicago? So like, does she know you coming? Have you talked to her? And we find out that they haven't talked to each other this entire time, which is crazy. That is crazy to me. So he goes to Chicago, and some of his artwork, some of his original work, and his newer work that got him recognized in the New York Times is in display in this museum, when in walks Stevie with some man on her arms. Now she's trying to beeline it out of there when it got to a point where they had to like speak to each other. So he's looking at her with the eyes, and she's, you know, looking shifty underneath her weight because she know what them eyes do. And they didn't really have like nothing wrong in their relationship per se. And I mean, they talking for a solid 2 minutes. That man that was on her arms, baby, he might as well have faded into the background, melted into the floor, okay? He was like, my name is Ahmad, and Isaiah acknowledges him a little bit, and Ahmad's like, how do y'all know each other? And she looks like she kind of wants to tell the truth, but it's looking real uncomfortable. And Isaiah, the gentleman that he is, he just saves her and was like, you know, we're old friends. And the guy was just like, you know, I admire your work, you know, great job, da 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 da. And Isaiah's like, nice meeting you, Ahmad. Stevie, I hope to catch up with you again. Well, like I said, Isaiah is a lover boy, so he's back in DC, but he calls and leaves a voicemail, and he's like, Stevie, it was so wonderful seeing you, and I've just been thinking about you this entire time. I have my second solo show in DC, and I was really wanting you to come out because there's something that I really want you to see. And honestly, I'm not even lying. It was basically like that. And so he's at a bar and he's drinking, and then Stevie shows up. Now, Stevie, when she steps out, baby, she finna have a plunging V, okay? The sternum is about to show from the collarbone to the navel, okay? Like, she is stepping. And she finna have her ankh in the middle of her chest, drawing those eyes, okay, in between the cleave. You know what I'm saying? Like, girl is stepping. And, you know, they're talking and they're talking, and then talking turns into going back and remembering all of the feels and all of the things. And when I tell you, quick plug on like intimacy and sex in movies. I love sex. I love talking about sex, not because of the physical act, but for everything that makes sex amazing, right? When you're rushing to get to something, it sucks. If you're not getting the body and the mind ready, like, sex sucks, okay? So just putting that out there. What I love about the energy that leads into intercourse, even if it doesn't lead into intercourse, right? And my favorite thing is when it doesn't lead into intercourse, especially in film and television, is the feather light touches, the lips ghosting the other ones, the two foreheads touching each other, the penguin kisses on the nose, putting your cheek against the other cheek and just breathing into that person's ear, putting your face into their neck, and you're not kissing them, you're not licking them, but you're just breathing in the essence of them, the pheromones, whatever sweat, whatever they did that day, plus the cologne and plus the perfume. Just looking at the person and raking your eyes down the body to the point that the person being stared at feels the touch of your eyeballs without you even using your hands. When I tell you, them coming back together after a year was some of the most beautifully shot, angsty, yearning, foreplay-ish, everything. It was everything. And you know what it's leading up to. But that's not the thing that we care about. How much did they miss each other, and how can we put that in a scene that doesn't show two bodies just bumping together in the dark? And it was so beautifully done, so much so that like I ached, like I felt like I was away from Isaiah for a year, and I'm just like, like, it was so beautiful. Then on top of this beautiful scene, this is where the movie starts to really break me down. Like, it kind of broke down my walls in the beginning, and then it really broke me down. So they in the afterglow, and she says, I missed you. And he says, I love you. And I said, get me out of here. Get me out of here. Like, he is not playing no games. I lost you once. Girl, I am not doing it again. I love you. You love me. We're a happy family. Like, this is what we were doing, okay? So it's, you know, morning. It's morning. And he's sitting at the window and he's just doing a little sketch or whatever. And he gets a phone call. And, you know, he's like, yeah, you know, he's basically saying like, no, put this on this wall preferably by itself, yada, yada, yada. Just some final touches on the show. And she comes in and she's like, okay, I'm finna get ready and go. And he was like, I thought we were supposed to spend a day together. And she was like, well, I thought so too. And so she's kind of back in this space where she feels like he's choosing his art over her. Now, something that I didn't mention before, her mama is in her head. Because her mama told her, don't be choosing nobody that's not choosing you and putting you first. Now, I'm not saying don't listen to your mama. but when has he shown you that that was the case? Like, he missed this one thing. Okay, it happens. So I just feel like there's not a lot of grace from her there. And the reason there's no grace is because it's masked by her fear. So he's like, what is going on? He's like, what is up? What is up? He's like asking, like, point blank. And she finally says, if you would have asked me to stay, I would have stayed and I would not have to go right now. And my man turned into every Blackstreet Boy and was, stay right here with me forever. He even pulled out a little Usher, okay? I'm in love with you and I don't ever want to lose you, okay? Can you handle it? And she couldn't, because obviously she got overwhelmed and she left. And I'm just like, Stevie, girl, what are we doing? So we go and it is the opening, and she did at least stay for his second solo. He sees her, she sees him, she walks over, but he doesn't have a lot of time to sit with her because this is your show. You have to meet other people. You're meeting buyers. You're meeting other investors, other sponsors. You know, you got a network, right? He's at work. And so she's kind of looking a little lost, and she don't really want to talk to anybody, even though there are people there that she knows. And she's kind of wandering off by herself when we see a piece sitting in a corner, lit all on its own against this hunter green painted wall. And it's by itself, and it is a giant picture of her. She's staring at it. Y'all would cry. She's staring at it, and it's her, like, just in her essence. And again, it has the distortions on it because, you know, we are not perfect, but the things that we do, even in our most ordinary forms, are beautiful and they are perfection. And it's a beautiful photo. Whoever painted this in real life, shout out to y'all, it's so gorgeous. And he walks up behind her and it goes to the credits. So there's that. Really love. Y'all, I'm so sorry. It was amazing. And like 10 out of 10 recommend. And the fact that it just ended on the unknown, right? But the unknown as far as like positive possibilities is so beautiful. And to just end on the note where she's having so much conflict within herself, and the one thing that remains is how he feels about her and that he loves her. This man worked a year on a painting because he yearned for her, he ached for her, and no matter how many fights or whatever she was doing to get between them, he would never let her do that, and he will always show her that he is showing up for her. And I just love that so much. I've already kind of weaved through like my review as I was doing a recap of the film, so I won't like harp on that again. But amazing, like 98% black cast. The crew was about a solid 90% black, and just the way that the story came to life, you can just really tell that a story like this could have only come together with people that look like us behind the scenes and in those writers' rooms. Even if we're not the cinematographer or whatever, just having that input behind the scene on what this should look like, what lights look good on us, what type of makeup looks good on us, what looks good on our body types, what we would actually say in the dialogue when it comes to editing the script and everything like that. Like, solid romance movie. I'm so happy that I saw this, and now I have something to watch. And it's so funny because my fiance, when she wants to like be in her feelings and like cry and feel things, she watches the Photograph. I like the Photograph, but I didn't feel like that deep with the Photograph for some reason. This is that for me. Really love, like, this is that for me, because I'm just like, this is so beautiful. And I see parts of my life. I won't say all of them, but I see parts of my life in both characters. I see some of my parents in her parents and his parents, whether it's their critiques and their they just want their children to be happy and to flourish, and you know, none of their parents' stuff came from like a malicious point of view, because at the end of the day their parents still showed up for them and supported them in more ways than just finance and stuff like that. They just want the best for their kids, while their kids are just trying to figure this thing out called life. So yeah, what a lovely movie. I highly recommend y'all watch it, and when you watch it, please leave a comment in the comment box below. I would love to know what you think about it. If you've never seen it and you end up liking it, if you saw it and you liked it, tell me some points that you found in it that connected with you. I would love to know. And of course, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Again, leave those comments. I love talking to y'all. Y'all are hilarious underneath my comments. Also, share that Spotify and that Apple Podcast link. And you can also find me on Instagram at So There's That Podcast, where I'm talking about everything film and television, news, and updates, as well as popping off at the mouth on Twitter at Kivonchi, as well as Blue Sky Social at Kivonchi. And with that, I will catch y'all in the next episode.